Chapter 2650. The identification. Everyone must be tired. We should not trouble anyone at this hour. Don't worry. There is only minor discomfort in my stomach. The baby should be fine. I will feel better if you rub my belly. Lan Wei, who then put his hand on her stomach and said, "Do it very gently." Yan Chen quietly did as she requested. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio, who had been invisible in the corner, saw everything that happened. Her medical skills and knowledge were excellent. With one look, she could already tell that Lan Wei's baby was fine. In fact, she had made up the entire situation. Gu Shijio thought that Lan Wei was only using it as an excuse to avoid going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow. She guessed that Yan Chen would be persuaded to turn down her offer, all for the sake of their baby. Nonetheless, to Gu Zhijia's surprise, the sole purpose of the entire act was to seduce Yan Chen. Lan Wei, who was already on the bed, with her clothes unbuttoned, thus revealing the pink belly band that was loosely covering her bloated tummy. Her skin was as fine as polished jade, which was clearly inviting. Yan Chen froze momentarily, and his hands stopped rubbing her tummy when he realized what she was up to. Gu Shijio stood in a daze as well, unsure if she should stay or leave. It was their very private moment, so it would not be so appropriate for her to stay in their bedroom. However, she was concerned about Yan Chen. If Little Fox turned out to be an imposter, Yan Chen would definitely feel very guilty for having sex with another woman. Both of them had been sleeping in separate bedrooms for almost 3 months now. Had they ever spent a night together during that period? Yan Chen, what is the matter? Yan Chen shook his head. Nothing. He then continued to rub her belly without doing anything more. Lan Wei, who had always been very healthy. She hardly fell ill and did not even have period cramps bothered her. The only stomach pain that she had ever encountered was the aftermath of eating too much ice. At the time, Yan Chen had to rub her belly to make her feel better, but they ended up doing more than just that. Since then, Little Fox was a little scared of asking him for help. This time, she was, surprisingly, the one who asked for the belly rub first. She grasped him by the wrist as she slowly traced his hand down her body. Yan Chen finally recovered from his preoccupation as soon as he noticed some hair on his fingertips. Abruptly, he pulled his hand back and sighed. "Little Fox, there is no need for that." Little Fox's face blushed crimson. Yan Chen looked away and stepped back. "Little Fox, there is no need for you to please me. Don't worry. No matter how much you dislike the intimate part of our relationship, I still love you just the same. All right, you should rest. I will see you in the morning." He then stormed out of the room. Lan Wei, who did not know what to say. She watched helplessly as Yan Chen left the room. "What an idiot!" She let out her frustration in a murmur. Slowly, she tidied up her clothes and fell asleep on the bed. Gu Shijio was still watching her. She could have easily extracted Lan Wei's soul out of her body to identify who she really was. However, the extraction would definitely harm the baby. Besides, there were other ways to prove her identity, so there was no rush. Therefore, Gu Shijio left the room as well. She went to look Yan Chen by the hillside. He looked like he was patrolling since he was striding up and down the place, but in fact he was all caught up in a daze. Gu Shijio approached him and called him out, "Yan Chen." Yan Chen was surprised to see her. "Why haven't you gone to bed?" Gu Shijio blatantly replied, "I am thinking about Little Fox." "What about her?" "Yan Chen, when did you find out about the pregnancy?" Chapter 2651. Do you still feel the same about her? About 2 months ago. Dr. Meng found out about it. Gu Shijio seemed troubled by the revelation. Dr. Meng was a great physician, who was also a loyal member of Tianju Hall. Her examinations should be accurate. Therefore, Little Fox must be genuinely pregnant. "Shijio, is there something wrong?" Yan Chen was worried by Gu Zhijia's troubled face. After a pause, Gu Shijio told him everything that she saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. She told him about Lan Yu and Duan Mayan. Pale-faced, Yan Chen was stricken with grief. He never knew that the Blue Fox family once belonged to inhabitants of another planet. Never had he thought that Little Fox's family were the invaders who burned, killed, and pillaged his home. If the people of Tianju Hall knew about it, they would definitely take their anger out on Little Fox. Shijio, why must Little Fox come with us tomorrow? If she finds out about the truth of her family, she will be so deeply saddened. She is pregnant, so I should try to keep her away from any extreme swings in her emotions. Yenchen, have you noticed anything abnormal about Little Fox in the past month? Gu Shijio finally broke her silence. Yenchen hesitated a little. Nothing. She has been the same. The only change was her attitude in bed, but that probably meant that she had become more mature. Moreover, her playful sexual attraction was nothing but a little spice in their relationship, which was something that Yenchen was reluctant to share. How about your feelings? Do you still feel the same about her? Yenchen could not answer immediately. Should be, he added a bit later on. Yenchen, I want the truth. Don't try to fool me. I need to know how you feel about her. Yenchen remained silent for a while. He did not know how to start, but he did notice how turned off he was whenever he was alone with Little Fox. He used to be so overwhelmed with a strong desire to touch and caress her, but things were different now. The only thing that he felt for her was responsibility. The overwhelming desire was no longer present. Shijio, what are you trying to say? Please tell me. He finally gave in. Gu Shijio hesitated a little but decided that he needed to know. Lan Yu was not the only one that I saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. I also saw another woman who looked exactly like Little Fox. She was fatally injured, almost on the verge of dying. She was dying? Yenchen exclaimed. Yes, her life was supported by a special herb. The family's doctor asked if she regretted anything, but she did not answer. Before I left, I saw her crying. No one knew that I was there, so there was no need for them to put on a show just to entertain me. Yenchen clenched his fists in disbelief. He caught the hint and asked Gu Shijio in return, do you think that the woman is the real Little Fox? Is the one I have been seeing every day only an imposter? Upon uttering those words, Yenchen quickly dismissed the thought. Gu Shijio continued, although the woman looked exactly like Little Fox, her temperament was completely different. More importantly, the woman that I saw was not pregnant. Or at least, she did not look like it when I saw her a few days ago. Realizing that she had dropped a bomb on Yenchen, Gu Shijio looked at him intently and said, Yenchen, you are her husband, so you are the one who knows her best. Follow your heart. She took another look at the moon and was reminded of a past incident. By the way, do you remember that my soul was once placed in another body? I do. Your body was taken over by someone else, while your soul was forcibly placed in a cloned body by Mo Zhao. He suddenly stopped talking as the sudden realization had hit him hard. Chapter 2652. I am not interested in the throne. Yenchen recalled the woman that he had injured the other day. Her eyes had sparkled with joy as soon as they met, and she did not hesitate to approach him. She seemed almost like a lost child who was seeking refuge from the first person she saw that she trusted. Lan Weiho definitely trusted and loved Yenchen wholly. Even if she were mad at him, that trust and love would not change. However, the first reaction that he had when he saw her was anger. He thought that his lady had pretended to be Little Fox, so he pushed her away at once. The more she claimed to be Little Fox, the angrier he got. He bombarded her with so many questions, but she could not even answer one. If you really are Little Fox, answer me this one important question. Where is our baby? Where is the child in your belly? Shocked, the woman could not answer his question. In fact, she could barely remember anything. The woman was still wearing the clothes from the enemy that he hated the most. She never stopped trying to hug him as he was the only one that she remembered after escaping. Yenchen, however, acknowledged her plea with a sneer and said that Little Fox had never left his side. As soon as she heard his words, she went crazy. Her bloodshot eyes clearly showed her indignation. She screamed at him and claimed that the other woman was an imposter. She was ready to kill and slash the woman into pieces. Her vile visage was something that Yenchen had never seen. To him, she was a crazy woman. Driven by anger, Yenchen hit her with a fatal attack. He was simply unconvinced that the woman was his wife. Although he kept telling himself that he did was the right thing, the look of astonishment and disbelief in the woman's eyes still haunted him. It made him feel so uncomfortable that he left at once. Every now and then, he would think about the woman, and his heart would ache for her. If the woman was really Little Fox, she must be really hurt by his action. The thought of her suffering was suffocating for him. He could not imagine how much pain she must have endured seeing the person she trusts hit her with a fatal blow. Shijio, tomorrow I will. He looked up and stopped talking, for Gu Shijio was no longer there with him. He was alone by the hills. On the other end of the wizardry barrier, there was a hill just outside of Tianju Hall. A woman was sitting with her knees hugged tightly in her arms. Intently, her eyes lingered on the moon in a sentiment of longing. A man stood by her side quietly. The woman was the one person who looked exactly like Lan Weihu. By her side stood the man who healed her, Duan Mayan. I like this place. The woman finally broke the silence. Tears choked her words, but her smile never left. I was born and brought up here. I have my friends and the man I love here. I have never once thought that I didn't belong. Weihu, you have the royal blood of the Blue Fox family in you. The Blue Fox planet is your home, a place where you truly belong. You are the survivor of a legitimate royal bloodline, which is the purest form of all. You are even nobler than the royalty from the Blue Fox planet. Should you choose to return, the Blue Fox Emperor will be so pleased. You could be the successor. I am not interested in the throne. Are you only interested in Yenchen? It seems that the man already has another Lan Weiho by his side. You clearly saw with your own eyes how precious she was to him when they snuck across the border. Chapter 2653. I never believed in destiny. He did not hesitate to hit you with such a fatal strike that almost took your life. Without the soul-sustaining herb that belongs exclusively to the Blue Fox planet, you would be long dead by now, killed by the hands of the man you love. Duan Mayan marked his words with bitterness and hostility. The woman's lashes trembled. I still have friends, she said. The statement was clearly meant to hit back at Duan Mayan. Friends? Duan Mayan teased, they have yet to find out about your identity. Once they do you think that they will still think of you as a friend? Your death will become the only thing that they wish for in their lives. Little Fox, you should not be so naive. It is all because of your murderous acts of killing and burning the innocent. You are the one who is responsible. It is all because of you. Weihu, the law of the jungle applies everywhere. The weak will always give ways to the strong. These people were killed because they are vulnerable, and vulnerability is a sin. They are just like the farm animals that are bred to be killed. Their weakness has doomed them for eternity under humans' ruthless control. To us, all the people here are relatively uncivilized, like the farm animals. Nonsense. It is all but an excuse for your invasion. Weihu, the Blue Fox planet has been stricken by too many disasters, which has made it no longer habitable for our people. The Blue Fox Emperor sent us out to find a better place to stay. We serve only the royalty there. In other words, we serve you too. You should not be too harsh on us. I am no royalty. You are. In that case, am I entitled to give you orders? Absolutely. Great. Now take your troops and go back to where you came from. Weihu, you may give me orders once you return to the Blue Fox planet and accept your title as a princess. Why must I wait until my return? Because the heavenly order shall not be breached. I never believed in destiny. I do, and I am afraid that you have to as well. I know that you can single-handedly take me back to the Blue Fox planet, so what is the point of our conversation? I cannot fight you, even if I am reluctant to go. I do not like to take people away by force. I would like you to come with me willingly. You are already forcing me. In that case, I hope you surrender to it. Is that why you sent the impostor to him? To break my heart? She is not entirely an impostor. Her body has been made from the cells of your body. Her body is no different than yours, in fact. The main difference is her soul. There was a moment of silence before the conversation continued. Whose soul is that? Where did she come from? About that, I am afraid that I cannot tell you more. The heavenly secret must not be spilled. Weihu, ignorance is bliss in this case. You once said that what he loved was your soul, not your body. What you saw proves otherwise. He cannot even tell the difference. Your body is all that matters to him, regardless of whose soul is in it. The woman said nothing more, but sorrow filled her eyes. Duan Mayan reached out to her and said, "You should stop thinking about him. Let's go." Should she give up? The woman closed her eyes and remained deep in her thoughts. He was the man that she had truly loved for centuries. How could she let him go just like that? Chapter 2654. There are still plenty of opportunities. Lan Weihu clenched her fists in frustration. She really wanted to kill the imposter. Do you want to kill her? It is easy. Duan Mayan offered help. He seemed to have read her thoughts. The woman stared at his smile and was somewhat perplexed. By this hour, she should be asleep. I can take you there and you can kill her. He offered his hand again and asked, "Would you like to go?" The woman stayed very still. What is the matter? Are you afraid that you might see Yan Qin embracing the naked woman in his arms? Are you worried that he might attack you again? She sat quietly in contemplation. Meanwhile, Duan Mayan looked at her fixedly, but his temperament became soft and gentle. After a while, he softly said, "Here, look at me." The lady seemed to be hypnotized all of a sudden. Slowly, she lost her consciousness, and there was only one thought in her head, which was to kill the imposter. A shade of emerald green slowly replaced her pitch-black eyes. At the same time, a steady flow of energy slowly took over her body like currents. Abruptly, she raised her arms and launched a strike across the fields, thus chopping the long grass into half. It looked as if the grass had been burnt off. Duan Mayan grasped her hand by the wrist. "Little fox, let's go. I will let you do what you wish to do." He was about to perform a spell but was startled by a visitor nearby. "Little Shijio, you are here so quickly. Never mind. I shall postpone the trip. There are still plenty of opportunities." He snapped his fingers before Lan Weihu's eyes to wake her up from the state of hypnosis. She opened her eyes and quickly freed her hand from his grasp. "What have you done?" "Nothing much. Little fox, we should go. You are still very weak, so you need to rest. I will escort you back." Without further ado, Duan Mayan took her hand and shoved her into a flying machine that was parked nearby. The machine rose into the sky and disappeared almost instantaneously. Not long after their departure, Gu Shijio showed up at the same spot. She took a turn around the fields trying to catch some sense but was disappointed. There was only fresh air that surrounded the hill. There was no lead for her to trace. Nonetheless, the withered grass on the ground caught her attention. Unfortunately, as the grass was all yellow and shriveled, she could not tell exactly when it was cut. Troubled, Gu Shijio could not help but wonder if her sixth sense had failed her this time. It would seem that no one had been here. She yawned as she looked up at the moon. It was already very late at night. She knew that she should rest for the sake of her child. In Tianju Hall, Lan Weihu could be seen lying on her bed. She was not asleep yet, and there was a little earpiece in her hand. "Master, Gu Shijio will be going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow, along with Yan Chen and me. I will try to delay her," she hoarsely whispered. "No need. Let her come to me," a stern voice replied from the other end. "I will not be comfortable there. I am worried that my identity will be exposed." "Don't worry. I will readjust and lower the sound waves in the base. You should be safe. There should not be a problem of keeping your identity concealed unless you are an idiot. Also, there will be a good show for you tomorrow." "Yes." Meanwhile, Gu Shijio had just returned to her house. As soon as she arrived, a silvery blue jade on her waist started flickering. Surprised, she answered it and overheard a conversation between a man and a woman. Attentively, she listened to every word that they said and was pleased. "You have finally revealed who you truly are," she said scornfully. She had bugged Lan Weihu's room earlier to get some evidence. Chapter 2655. The wolves are coming. Gu Shijio pondered about the details of the conversation between the cloned Lan Weihu and her master from the Blue Fox planet. A sudden realization hit her that she had not detected any sound waves when she sneaked into their base earlier. Being a great deity blessed her with more or less an indestructible body. The sound waves did not bother her at all the last time that she was there. So, why was the fake Lan Weihu concerned about the sound waves? Was it because her body was weaker than normal? Was she a clone? Or was she using Little Fox's original body? Also, who was the person's master? What did he mean when he said there would be a show tomorrow? Whatever it was, Gu Shijio looked forward to the day. In the base of the Blue Fox family, Admiral Guan Yening was in a state of fury. All the vegetables and food that they had painstakingly collected were gone overnight, leaving nothing behind for his people. Moreover, so many of his ships had been destroyed, which basically magnified his losses over the last few days. Clearly, the man was frustrated. He could not understand how all this could happen. There was so much food in the storage. Even with the help of his ships, the delivery took more than 10 rounds just to send all the food from one point to another. How did everything disappear so mysteriously? Frustrated, he decided to ask Lan Yu about it. The Lord has a storage space that can expand infinitely, Lan Yu nonchalantly said. Guan Yening was speechless. He started picturing the tender woman in his head. She had such a thin and slender figure that he could easily scoop her away with one arm. To his utter surprise, the small woman was able to move away tons of his food supply at once. What a mighty woman, he thought. For the first time in his life, he was in awe of a woman. At the same time, he was also intimidated by her. In his mind, she was, perhaps, the only person in the Starry Crescent land that possessed any formidable level of spiritual power. The use of spiritual power was against any logical sense or scientific advancement. As a member of the Blue Fox planet, Guan Yening was very proud of so many technological breakthroughs that his planet had witnessed. He had been to many planets ever since he started voyaging the galaxy, but he had never respected any of the inhabitants. In his eyes, they were merely uncivilized species. He could basically wipe out entire civilizations with ease. None of them was able to defend themselves from his power. It was beyond his expectation that he would one day meet such a deadly threat. Although the members from the Blue Fox planet had experienced such breakthroughs in technological advancements, they still needed food just like any other living civilization. Their overlooting had severely drained the sources of food in the Starry Crescent land. Therefore, the masses now lived in dire poverty. The accumulated food in their storage did not come easy, and yet there was no guarantee that they would have enough for breakfast the next day. Guan Yening quickly sent some men to scour for food, while he and his military officers discussed for a long-term solution. While having his discussions, he saw the general, along with the woman named Lan Weihu. Guan Yening felt rather confused as he did not understand why the general placed so much attention on the woman. Was she a survivor of the royal bloodline? Even if she were, the general would not have any authority to be around her. Had the general fallen for Lan Weihu? The general had always been an unfriendly and unapproachable man. What changed him this time? Guan Yening could tell that the general was behaving slightly differently over the past month. His behavior had become more and more unpredictable, and his whereabouts were always concealed. The soldiers did not feel close to the general anymore. The moon looks beautiful. Did you enjoy watching it with a beautiful woman by your side? Guan Yening went for it. What concerns do you have? Duan Mayan asked icily. I have none. I was only asking if you had a great time. General, the Lord has made us suffer a great deal. Not only has she destroyed our ships, but she has also stolen our food. Since you are in the mood to go out and watch the moon, I believe that you must have thought of a way to recover our stolen food. May I hear any suggestions from you, sir? Chapter 2656. The wolves are coming, too. All the other soldiers kept their attention on Duan Mayan, eager to see how he would respond. Duan Mayan gave Lan Weihu a gentle tap on her shoulder and said, "You must be tired. Go to bed now." Lan Weihu brushed his hand away and walked away quietly. Apparently, she did not care to protect Duan Mayan's reputation in front of his men. Meanwhile, Guan Yening whistled scornfully. "General, the lady did not seem to care about you. I did not know that she is actually your type." Before he was done talking, his foot suddenly caught something, and he crashed into the ground. His face went down first, thus scratching his lips with bloody wounds. He quickly stood up again and looked at Duan Mayan in disbelief. General. Duan Mayan was one of the few members from the Blue Fox planet who possessed psychic powers, especially involving telepathy. He could move anything with his mind or kill anyone by controlling a gun with only his mental power. Though ruthless, he was a man who honored his followers with respect, as they had been through life and death together. Those were the good old days when he was still friends with them. Guan Yening was never afraid to tease him in the past, but things took a quick turn for the worse this time. Duan Mayan looked at him sternly in the eye and asked, "Are you done with your bullshit?" His icy tone sent chills around the place. Guan Yening finally admitted to his own failure. "I am sorry, sir. General, I was frustrated by the Lord's arrogance. She should be back in Tianju Hall by now. Should we take the opportunity and launch another attack? You have been leading the attack for 3 months now. Have you achieved anything yet?" "About that, we managed to break the turtle shell last time. Although they have sealed the hole, it is no longer the barrier that it used to be. I believe that we can shatter it this time if we use all of our explosives." "Dream on. The Lord is the one who created the barrier. Without her, perhaps you could break it after a few attempts. Now that she is back, I am certain that it is as solid as it was before. Moreover, she possesses both teleportation and invisibility skills. She even mastered the use of our weapons. Do you really think that you can achieve anything from the attack? You will only risk losing all of our ships." Guan Yening remained quiet. He did not know how to argue with the general, but he refused to give up. Should we let her go just like that? Should we just hide in our comfort zone? Of course not, the general acknowledged it with a confident smile. She will be here tomorrow. Everyone who could hear the conversation got excited by the news. Guan Yening subconsciously clenched his fists as if he was ready to fight. They had lost to her because they were unprepared. This time, he believed that they were ready to defeat her, as long as they had time to plan out a proper comeback. "You should all come up with a proper plan to give the Lord a good challenge tomorrow," Duan Mayan commanded. "Yes." All of them answered in unison. "You are not allowed to do anything at your own will tomorrow. Everything must be done according to my commands." Duan Mayan added. None of his men objected. Instead, they acknowledged his authority firmly before going away. All kinds of coordination and manpower were poured in to prepare different ambushes and setups at different places. It was not an easy task to take the Lord down, so the soldiers had to spend the entire night fine-tuning and modifying their weapons to the highest level. When all was done, the sky was already brightly lit. After the long night of preparation, all of the soldiers were tired, but they looked forward to the day. Some of the soldiers had never met Gu Shijio, so they were eager to see her. As for those who had suffered losses, they could not wait to give her a taste of her own medicine. All in all, despite their tiredness, they were waiting eagerly for her arrival. They kept their guard up as they knew that she was equipped with teleportation and invisibility skills. Chapter 2657. The Wolves Are Coming, 3. They watched attentively and would not overlook even the slightest change in the environment, be it a new wave of breeze or a fallen leaf. They had to be sure everything was safe. The troops waited for the entire day, from dawn to dusk, and then to dawn again, but she never showed. Right before sunrise, one of the military officers received some news from his follower, who was in charge of guarding the city. The man was shouting in a frantic manner through the call, "Officer, it is not looking good. Some unknown being has attacked our ships. Everything has been destroyed. All of it. Here she comes. Damn it." That was the end of the call. Obviously, the man was dead. The military officer on the other end of the line was devastated by the loss. The city housed hundreds of his best men, along with dozens of ships. None of them survived the sudden attack. He quickly passed the message on to Duan Mayan. Duan Mayan finally realized that they were tricked by Gu Shijio. This was rather unexpected for the man because he made it a point not to be the one who contacted the Lan Weihu impersonator in order to prevent her identity from being exposed. She was always the one who called him first. They only spoke once that day, and according to her report, Gu Shijio had taken both her and Yen Chen out of Tianju Hall, but they were not heading for the base. Instead, Gu Shijio placed them in the city and left them alone. She told them to wait for her while she went away to make some preparations. The wait lasted the entire day. Yenchun called Gu Shijio once but was only told to wait. She told him that she would return when everything was done. The military officers and their soldiers had been waiting for so long, but the news that came was clearly devastating. Duan Mayan kept his composure and finally gave the fake Lan Weihu a call, but she did not answer it for a long time. When she finally did, all he could hear was her soft voice. "Master, we have returned to Tianju Hall. Yenchun never left my side the whole time, so I could not find the right time to contact you. Gu Shijio told us that we would visit the base tonight." Duan Mayan was speechless. "If she really is coming tonight, report to me when you are around the corner." "Sure." "Is the news reliable?" She made a promise to Yenchun. While Duan Mayan was having a call with the fake Lan Weihu, everyone else around him clearly heard everything. Their blood boiled with anger. "General, has your informant been exposed? Have we all been tricked?" Guan Yening asked. Duan Mayan thought about it for a moment before he replied, "Everyone should go and have some rest, so all of us can focus tonight. Gu Shijio must be trying to confuse us. Knowing her, she always keeps her word when it comes to her friends. She should be here tonight." All of the military officers looked at one another upon hearing the general. They chose to trust the general, for his wits and wisdom had never failed to impress them. Therefore, they quickly went to rest in order to prepare them for the night. In the end, they wasted the night waiting for nothing. Days went by, and they had spent almost 2 weeks waiting for nothing. Every time she said she would come, there would always be something that distracted her midway. Some days, she would change her plan and decide not to visit the base at all, but would still keep the fake Lan Weiho by her side to play a game of chess or to have some chats, so there was no time for the imposter to contact Duan Mayan. Other days, she would keep the fake Lan Weihu in Tianju Hall and take Yenchun out with her. Chapter 2658. The Wolves Are Coming. 4. There was once that Gu Shijio even brought Lan Weihu out of Tianju Hall alone, but was inseparable from her the entire time. She said that she needed to protect her and then strolled with her for the whole day. The entire scenes unfolded just like the story, "The Wolves Are Coming." She had used this trick 10 times in a row. She had deceived her enemy and taken down several cities while they were waiting for her arrival. The battleships that protected those cities were not the highest-rated ones. They stood no chance at all against Gu Shijio. Meanwhile, the generals in the base were growing increasingly frustrated by the day. Whenever they heard rumors about the Lord's arrival, it only made them feel sick and subconsciously want to vomit. They had lost their patience and did not even bother to stay in their positions to defend against an attack. Instead, they would just continue with their own work. For those who actually stood in their positions assigned to them by Duan Mayan, they would be yawning or half asleep at their stations or playing card games and mahjong. The Tianju Hall was certainly more lively than the base of the Blue Fox clan. Its source of food was increasing by the day as Gu Shijio continued to rob the granaries of the many cities that she had conquered over the past few days. There was no food left for the Blue Fox armies. The people in Tianju Hall no longer had to worry about food and water. Nonetheless, they were not simply hanging around while enjoying their improved standard of living. They had been learning how to utilize the weapons of the enemy, which Gu Shijio had retrieved from her conquests, in order to take them down. These things were considered as novelties to the people in Tianju Hall, but once they understood the technology behind the weapons, they were completely familiar with the weapons in an instant. In addition to the weapons that Gu Shijio stole from the cities, she even managed to seize some battle suits from the enemy. Although there were not enough suits for everyone, at least half of the people in Tianju Hall were able to get one. Everyone understood that the Lord was training them to go to war. Having witnessed firsthand the devastation brought about by these foreigners, the team under Gu Shijio did their best to prepare themselves and grow. Gu Shijio had always been mysterious, but everything she did was for a good reason. Therefore, even though she had been lying to Yenchun for half a month, he did not complain when he found out. He knew that she must have her own reasons for doing so. Lately, Yenchun had been thinking about the lady that looked exactly like Lan Weihu, who he injured and was now recuperating at the base of the Blue Fox family. He wanted to see her again, but Gu Shijio had strictly forbidden him to act alone and said that he would disrupt her plan. Yen Chen respected her authority and did as told. The Lan Weihu around him was still lively and cheerful as always. She persistently tried to seduce him to bed, but he still had no desire for her. This odd recurring behavior of hers naturally made Yen Chen suspect that the girl beside him was an imposter, so he had tried several times to clear his suspicions but did not find anything wrong. He even checked her back to confirm whether the birthmark was real. It seemed legitimate. He also chatted with her and casually asked her questions about their past. She remembered everything and could answer all the questions that came her way. Even if she had forgotten some aspects of things that happened a long time ago, once she was given some clues, she could recall it right away. This made it seem as though she was the genuine Lan Weihu. Yen Chen also looked for Gu Shijio in private and asked for her opinion. Unfortunately, she did not have much to say but asked him to feel it with his heart. The little fox that was with him was pregnant, so as long as he was not 100% sure that this one was a fake, he did not want to harm her. He will still guard her with his life. Aside from serving her in bed, he did almost everything for her and pampered her as usual. On this day, Gu Shijio came to find Yen Chen and Lan Weihu. Let's go. We will head to the base of the Blue Fox family today. Chapter 2659. Where does it hurt? Liar. The imposter secretly whispered. The Lan Weihu imposter had continuously been berated by her master for feeding him incorrect information about their planned visit. It was driving him and the troops crazy. Shijio, I don't feel very well today. Can we go tomorrow? Lan Weihu did not want to do this useless work anymore. Not going at all was better than pretending to go but not actually ending up there. You're not feeling well? Where does it hurt? Come, let me check on you. Gu Shijio sat next to her and touched her wrist. Lan Weihu was speechless. She forgot that Gu Shijio was an expert physician. Pretending to be sick would definitely lead to intense questioning, so Lan Weihu quickly pulled her hand away. I think I have overeaten, so I feel very bloated. Perhaps walking might improve my digestion, so maybe we should go out. Where are we going today? The base of the Blue Fox family. Are you going to do something else first? I don't think so. As long as no one suddenly starts looking for me in the middle of our journey, I will not take any detours today. Gu Shijio promised. Nonetheless, her promises did not mean much to Lan Weihu anymore. During their last few trips, Gu Shijio had claimed to receive directed audio messages that required her immediate attention. She would then disappear for the entire day. She had used the same excuse about 4 times already. Lan Weihu cursed Gu Shijio in her heart. There was nothing that she could do besides adhering to her requests. After all, she was the Lord, a person who could make the earth tremble with a single stomp on the ground. She could not afford to reject her. She could not help but look at Yen Chen for some kind of assurance. Yen Chen was expressionless, but he straightened his shirt and said, "Wei, go and tidy up yourself, well depart soon." Lan Weihu was helpless, so she entered the house to pack her things. After entering the house, she took out her secret directed audio spell but paused before she switched it on. Her last few attempts to inform Duan Mayan of their planned visit resulted in the man threatening her. He said, "If your report is false again, I will screw your head down into the ground like a ball to kick." Therefore, after some contemplation, she decided not to make a report this time. Only when she was sure that Gu Shijio really wanted to go to the base would she look for an opportunity to report the situation. Lan Weihu found herself standing outside the wizardry barrier of the Blue Fox family and was stunned. They really came. Gu Shijio meant what she said and did not take any detours today. The informant knew that she should inform her boss of their presence. Otherwise, he might rip her into pieces. "Shijio, I want to go to the toilet first." Lan Weihu had to come up with an excuse to have some time alone. Okay, Gu Shijio did not doubt her. Go. She looked around and saw a small shrubbery nearby. She then pointed at it and said, "Go there." Lan Weihu nodded and went in the direction that Gu Shijio had told her to go. However, she did not rush to pee but instead took out her directed audio spell. When she was about to contact Duan Mayan, she could hear a breeze around her. Gu Shijio had suddenly appeared at her side. Lan Weihu was shocked, and the directed audio spell in her hand almost fell to the ground. Shijio? Why are you here? She stuttered. Gu Shijio looked at her with concern. I just saw a black shadow pass this place and was afraid that you had encountered something unexpected. After all, this is their territory, so we should be careful. Okay, you can pee now. I will wait here to make sure that you are safe. She took 2 steps back and waited patiently for her to do her business. Lan Weihu was speechless. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she complained in her heart. Since Gu Shijio was so close to her, she naturally did not dare to use the directed audio spell now. When she squatted to pee, she kept the directed audio spell that full of sweat back into her pocket. Chapter 2660, Useless Idiots. While squatting, she tried to come up with an excuse to delay Gu Shijio so that she could find a way to report to her master. With that in mind, she tripped and fell toward a big stone next to her. She wanted to hurt herself, and it would be even better if there were signs that it could lead to a miscarriage so that they could go straight back to Tianju Hall. However, before she started rolling toward the stone, she had been caught by Gu Shijio, who had teleported over. She did not hurt herself at all. The imposter secretly gritted her teeth, but she had to look grateful on the surface. Thank you, Shijio. Thank you very much. In her heart, she was also wondering if Gu Shijio had been staring at her the entire time. Had she been exposed? Gu Shijio patted her on the shoulder and asked, "How can you be so careless?" My foot was numb. Do you want me to give you a massage? Gu Shijio still showed that she cared about her. No, I'm good now. Lan Weihu did not dare to let her touch her foot. Otherwise, her lie would be exposed too. Gu Shijio sighed and could only advise her, "You have to be more careful." After that, they walked back over to Yenchen. Yenchen, she is pregnant now. It is not very convenient for her to be alone. She almost fell and bumped into a big stone. Please look after her at all times. Do not leave her side. Yenchen's facial expression changed. He quickly placed his arms on Lan Weihu and said, "Rest assured, Weihu. I will always stay by your side." Lan Weihu remained silent but felt extremely bitter about recent events. At first, Yenchen had given her space and did not even know what she was up to. Now, he was going to be inseparable from her. Perhaps, she might not have a chance to contact her boss anymore. The technology that belonged to the Blue Fox planet was superb. However, it did not have things like a wizardry barrier. Gu Shijio could tell that the wizardry barrier set up at the Blue Fox base was put in place by Lan Yu and his great elders. It was an extraordinary kind of barrier, only a few people could unlock it. Lan Weihu, as the high priest of the Blue Fox family, was one of the few people who was capable enough to do so. Both Gu Shijio and Yenchen had seen her open the wizardry barrier here, and it had not changed since the last time. Therefore, Lan Weihu could not pretend that she did not know how to do it. Under intense observation from Gu Shijio, she had to open it with a bitter heart. She just hoped that there would be new defense facilities in the barrier so that when they entered the inside, the mechanisms could detect the intrusion. However, things did not seem to be going in the imposter's favor. The 3 of them had entered the base for 15 minutes, and the people inside still did not notice them. They were either sleeping or drinking or playing cards around the place. Meanwhile, the soldiers that actually patrolled the area were like blind men. Although the 3 of them clearly walked past them, they did not notice them at all. It was rather annoying for Lan Weihu as she recalled that the guards had proudly claimed that they could even identify the gender of a mosquito if it passed them. Useless idiots! Lan Weihu cursed in her heart. She wanted to make a move to get their attention, but Yenchen was very close to her at all times. It would be too suspicious. Although there were various infrared scanners in this base, Gu Shijio had created some special protection over the 3 of them that could keep them under the radar. Hence, they could really come and go as they liked. The only thing that Lan Weihu had going for her now was the fact that Gu Shijio had not done anything damaging. They just wandered around, which made Lan Weihu extremely nervous the entire time. Chapter 2661, Authentic or fake, it was certainly an odd feeling for Lan Weihu as she was hoping to be caught. If that did not happen, at the very least, she hoped that Gu Shijie would just wander here for a while and then take them back and not create any trouble. As for Yanqin, the more he walked around, the paler his face became. He had visited the Blue Fox clan countless times, but it was the first time he saw it in its new glory. Buildings that he had never seen before seemed to have suddenly risen from the ground. Although the architectural styles were similar to the original residence of the Blue Fox clan, the scale and the materials were completely different. It seemed like the buildings were made from some kind of metal. As he passed by a building, he subconsciously touched it to assess the type of material that they used. He felt the unique coldness of the metal and its smoothness, which was like jade. The material was foreign to him, so he decided to apply the same amount of strength he would use to crush a diamond. However, he did not even leave a mark on it. Apparently, this metal was much harder and stronger than diamond. Yanqin estimated that it would be impossible for anyone with a spiritual power below 10 to inflict any damage on the metal. Unfortunately, there were less than 10 people with a level 10 spiritual power and above in the Starry Crescent land. Even though the buildings would clearly be challenging to attack, this was not the main reason why Yanchan's facial expression changed. He was more stunned when he saw the native Blue Fox people. The man had traveled to the Blue Fox clan many times and knew some of the people there, especially those at the top of the hierarchy. Most of them no longer dressed the same. They no longer wore long robes with big sleeves. Instead, they wore short robes and trousers. In fact, they were similar to shirts and pants, but Yanqin did not know what it was at the time, so he thought of them as short robes. The color of the men's clothes was iron gray, while the women's clothes were light gray. Even though they dressed differently, they still seemed to be freely doing their own things. From time to time, some of the foreigners would pass through the streets. The native Blue Fox people often waved their hand at them, and some even referred to them as their brother or sister. Although Yanqin had dealt with the invaders several times, they were always hiding in their armored monster ships. So, this was the first time Yanqin clearly saw the appearance of these outsiders. Most of the outsiders had high noses and deep-set eyes. They did not look like Asians. In fact, their eyes were very similar to the native Blue Fox people. Most of the people had dark blue eyes that looked a bit like fox eyes. When they smiled, their watery eyes sparkled under the sunlight. Therefore, what Gu Shijie said was true. The Blue Fox family was indeed the same breed as these outsiders. Although Gu Shijie had already told Yanqin in advance, seeing it with his own eyes was still an eye-opener. Over the past year, these invaders had committed a lot of crimes in the Starry Crescent land, and the locals absolutely despised them. They could not wait to kill them all and seek revenge for their fallen loved ones. Unfortunately for Yanqin, the bloody truth of it all was that his wife and these alien invaders were one family. He felt like an anti-Japanese warrior who had suddenly found out that his beloved wife was Japanese. The aura he exuded was rather gloomy, following that revelation. He naturally understood that Little Fox was innocent and was a good wife to him. However, it did not mean that the other people in the Starry Crescent land could understand. Once they knew the truth, could they forgive Little Fox? Chapter 2662, Authentic or Fake? 2. He looked at Lan Weihu, who was beside him to gauge her response to the situation. Her face was visibly pale as well. It seemed like she was surprised by the place as well. Don't be afraid, I will protect you. He held Lan Weihu's little hand as he spoke. Lan Weihu bit her lip and looked at him with tears rolling in her eyes. Will you dislike me after seeing all that my family has done? No, it has nothing to do with you. Yanqin rubbed her hair and assured her. Lan Weihu leaned into his arms and spoke softly, I am still terrified. What are you afraid of? I am afraid that your friends will not be able to accept me once this has been exposed. Yanqin was not very good at lying, even when he needed to comfort someone. He was silent for a while before he replied, This matter has nothing to do with you. If they really can't accept you, I will run away with you to stay away from any troubles. Lan Weihu remained silent. Yanqin's remarks are what any girl wanted to hear. Her eyes shimmered slightly as she slowly reached out her arms and held Yan Chen's waist. She did not speak but just leaned her head against his muscular chest. Having her so close to him, Yan Chen could not help but sniff her familiar scent. All of a sudden, he felt very sorry for the way he had been treating her. Once he had his suspicions about her, he grew rather wary of his wife. But now, looking at her natural movements and familiar appearance, he felt that he had overthought the situation. The only change that he had seen in her behavior was the fact that she was trying to seduce him very often. Nonetheless, could it be because she suddenly changed her mind and understood him better? The thought of this made him feel even more guilty. He stretched out his arm around her and gave her a kiss on her forehead. "Rest assured, little fox. I will not abandon you." The two of them embraced each other tightly. As the three of them had an invisible spell around them to keep them safe, they did not always go around together. At that very moment, Gu Shijio was not with them. Instead, she went to visit the battleship hangar. The security facilities there were the most advanced in the area with a variety of high-precision instruments. Gu Shijio was not very sure if she could walk in undetected, so she asked Yan Chen to go to wander around somewhere safer first while she went in to investigate. Gu Zijia's spells had worked wonders for the three of them so far. They had met with several patrol staff along the way, and no one had noticed them. As an added safety measure, Gu Shijio managed to get the three of them changed into the uniform worn by the Blue Fox people. Therefore, even if they were discovered, they could blend themselves with the Blue Fox people and wait for an opportunity to escape. Yan Chen was still hugging Lan Weihu tightly in his arm. He felt a warm feeling in his heart that he had denied himself from feeling for some time. He suddenly thought that he had been somewhat cruel to her for rejecting her so many times in the past. He paused for a moment, and then whispered in her ear, "When we go back, let's stay together again." Lan Weihu's eyes brightened, knowing what he meant at once. Her pretty face turned red, and she nodded. "Okay." Her blushing cheeks were like red apples, which made her look very cute. Yan Chen's heart jumped at the sight of it, and he kissed her cheek gently. "Little fox." Before he finished his sentence, he suddenly couldn't continue speaking. He saw a beautiful woman standing in the distance with a long, neat hair that was tied behind her head with a ribbon. She was wearing a light blue large robe but looked a little weak and pale. Only the space in between her eyebrows was bright red. This was the woman who looked exactly like Lan Weihu. At this very moment, she was leaning against a pillar, and her eyes were looking in Yan Chen's direction. It was rather direct, which made him feel that she could see them. The man's heart rate was already slightly elevated earlier, but right now, it was racing uncontrollably. Subconsciously, he let go of Lan Weihu and walked toward the woman. Lan Weihu grabbed his sleeve and sent a directed audio to him. "Yan Chen, this woman and I look alike." Chapter 2663, Authentic or Fake? 3. The two women certainly looked very similar. However, Yan Chen was confident that they looked more similar the last time he met her. Lan Weihu was always cheerful and lively. Although she was not plump, she had a round, chubby face. It was adorable and always enticed people to hug her. However, the woman in front of him was rather skinny and no longer had the cute, chubby face that he knew Lan Weihu to have. Her black and bright round eyes had also curved slightly upward. Furthermore, her pupils were now black and purple, so when she looked at people, it was like a whirlpool that could suck them into her eyes. Her temperament was also very gloomy, which made it seem like she was not of this world. Yan Chen looked at the little fox beside him, then looked at the woman again. In fact, the two of them were very different once he had a more thorough look. The woman did not look like Little Fox anymore. However, when he saw her, his heart still seemed to be attracted by something. He felt a pain in his chest. When the soldiers of the Blue Fox planet passed her, they would salute her and greet her. "Royal Highness Princess." She always ignored them, which made her seem cold and indifferent. "Brother Yan Chen, is she the princess of these bad guys?" "I didn't expect her to look like me," Lan Weihu commented. Maybe she is." Yan Chen whispered in response while his eyes were still focused on the woman. Lan Weihu was unhappy with his responses to her and tugged his sleeve, Brother Yenchen, are you fascinated by her? Yenchen was stunned by her question and quickly turned to look at her. He noticed her familiar jealous expression at once. It was very accurate to how Lan Weihu used to express her jealousy in the past. Yenchen shook his head slightly at the sight of it. No matter how good people were at disguising themselves, it was impossible to have the same habitual movements that were so consistent. He was sure that the little fox beside him was the authentic one. Perhaps, that woman, the princess of these outsiders, entangled with him at the time because she wanted to pretend to be Little Fox in order to sneak into Tianju Hall. Fortunately, he could distinguish them at the time. He did not want to make Little Fox jealous anymore, so he stopped looking at the princess and comforted Lan Weihu by rubbing her head. It is impossible. Stupid, I only have you in my heart. How can I be fascinated by other women? I was watching her because she looks like you. Lan Weihu snorted and revealed the dimples on her cheek. Okay, this is acceptable to me. She snuggled in Yenchen's arm and looked at the woman with eyes full of smug. Princess, how are you able to stand in the wind? A man walked out of a room with a cloak in his hand. He walked over to the woman and put the coat on her shoulder. The woman did not move and let him tie the cloak for her. When Lan Weihu saw this man, she immediately went stiff. She hid behind Yenchen and did not even dare to breathe too hard. Yenchen also stared at the man. The man wore a simple short robe and a pair of trousers. His eyes were bright, and he carried a rather calm temperament. From his appearance, he seemed to be someone in the military that also carried a noble status. He was also a very handsome man. Who was this man? He could not be an ordinary sergeant, seeing that he was allowed to be so close to the princess. However, he had not worn his military uniform, so Yenchen could not tell his actual status. He could only infer that the man had a high rank. Let's go. I will take you around. You are too weak to go alone, but it is good for you to enjoy the sun. Chapter 2664. Authentic or Fake? 4. Yenchen continued to stare at the backs of the two persons who were walking away. Subconsciously, his fingers could not help but tighten under his sleeves. Although he already made up his mind that the woman was not Little Fox, seeing her being held by another man still made him uncomfortable. He felt the urge to rush over and separate them. Brother Yenchen, can we go elsewhere? Lan Weihu tugged his sleeves as she asked. Okay. He nodded and took his attention away from the two people. The reason why he was uncomfortable was that the woman looked like Little Fox. Nonetheless, he knew that he should not take his wife for granted anymore. Yenchen felt that he should no longer waste his attention on the woman. Instead, he should be analyzing the facilities here so that he and his team could plan a way to take the enemies down. A little while later, Yenchen was pacing through the entire area. Lan Weihu could hardly catch her breath as she tried to keep up with him. Brother Yenchen, can you slow down? The man halted his steps and just realized that he had left Lan Weihu behind. Lan Weihu dashed over and hugged his arm lightly. She gently complained, I am pregnant. Why are you walking so fast? Yenchen sighed and took her hand. Shijio did not come back. I am worried about her. We need to find her. I think we better not act rashly. Shijio said that some of the high-tech mechanisms here could expose our invisibility. I believe she asked us to stay put earlier. Yenchen paused for a moment to try to recall what Gu Shijio had told him earlier. Before they separated with her, she did warn him about it and asked him to stay close with Little Fox. He should not even be one step ahead of her. However, he could not see Gu Shijio anywhere around the hangar area. Do not worry. Shijio is so powerful, she will be fine. If we go and find her, it will actually alert the other party, and it might even bring trouble to her. Lan Weihu comforted him. With a smile, Yenchen complimented Lan Weihu, Little Fox, you are so sensible. If it were the old Little Fox that he knew, she would have eagerly asked him to go and look for Gu Shijio. She would never say such wise words. Apparently, Little Fox had grown up, and he was the one who grew emotional and rash. Two of them discussed the matter softly and then turned and went elsewhere. Along the way, Yenchen quietly observed and marked down the layout of the place. But all of a sudden, there was a loud sound in front of them on the left. Someone screamed, "Princess, drink it, drink it." Stunned, Chen could not help but go over and take a closer look. Lan Wei-hu quickly tried to stop him. "Brother Chen, there are many people there. We shouldn't go there now. Otherwise we risk being uncovered." "It is fine. They can't see us." Chen continued walking and reached the crowded place very soon. He realized that he had arrived at a restaurant. In fact, Chen used to come to this restaurant with Lan Wei-hu in the past. They used to get a few drinks here every now and then. The restaurant had not changed much since the last time he came. Chen stepped inside with Lan Wei-hu and saw the princess sitting at a table. She was sitting at a table with 7 or 8 other officers, along with a man who was seated beside him. The group was having a drink there and playing a drinking game. Apparently, the princess lost the most recent round. According to the rules of the game, the loser would drink. Hence, that explained why he heard the loud noises urging the princess to drink. Someone also shouted, "If the princess does not want to drink, she can sing a song for us instead." The princess did not speak. Instead, she raised her hand and gulped down the wine in her glass. Seconds after, she slammed the glass on the table and extended her slim hand to the group. "Pour me another glass." Chapter 2665. Were they trying to get her drunk? "The princess is so sporting." Those men raised their thumbs at her in acknowledgement. The people who often carried a knife and were exposed continuously to blood generally had strong and imposing characters. They also admired down-to-earth and straightforward people. Initially, they thought that the princess was a snobbish person. Furthermore, to them, besides her status as princess, there did not seem to be anything special about her. Hence, they never looked up to her before until now. Feeling more at ease with her, the group grew livelier throughout the game. Meanwhile, Chen squinted his eyes and followed the princess' every move. Even with Lan Wei-hu tugging at his sleeve the entire time, it failed to grab his attention back to her. 15. 20. 7 to 8 pairs of palms continued to change their gestures from time to play the game. It was the most basic game that one could play with their hands. Being the only female playing the game, the princess' delicate palms clearly stood out among the muscular hands of the men. Even though Chen was distracted by the princess, after some time, he seemed to find the game somewhat familiar to him. Moments later, his heart suddenly shook as he remembered why he felt that way. In the past, when Gu Shijio first entered Tianju Hall and became good friends with Little Fox and Chen Lingyu, she used to teach Little Fox this game. Little Fox tried to explain the game to him once, but they ended up playing other drinking games instead. It had been more than 200 years ago since that day. If not for Chen's good memory, he probably would never have been able to recall it. But who taught them this game? Did all the people from the Blue Fox planet would know how to play it? Or was it explained to them by the princess? Chen analyzed the win rate of the princess and noticed that she had lost twice in the space of just a few rounds. Following the rules, she dried up 2 glasses of wine without any hesitation. Her pale but pretty face was turning rosy, but her eyes started to light up with some bright colors. Finally, Chen turned to look at Lan Wei-hu, who was beside him. Little Fox was not good at drinking. In fact, every time she drank, she would only take a few sips and then pass the glass over to Chen to finish it. Hence, it was getting clearer to Chen that the woman he saw earlier was not Little Fox. After reaching this conclusion, Chen was somewhat relieved but also a little disappointed. It did make much sense for him to watch a group of people drinking. Therefore, Chen knew that he should leave the restaurant and continue to explore the base. Nonetheless, somehow, his feet were stuck to the ground. He did not want to go. When he saw the princess drinking, he had the subconscious urge to take away her cup. It seemed like she just recovered from a severe illness. Could she drink liquor like this? Chen's gaze then turned to the guardian, who was next to the princess. The man always smiled faintly and swirled the glass of wine in his hand while watching the games unfold. It was only when the princess had drunk 7 or 8 glasses of wine did the guardian attempt to stop her. "Princess, you should stop drinking now. You are not in good condition." The princess pushed his hand away. "I have recovered." You don't have to be concerned about me. She downed another glass of wine then and there. Princess, you are so cool. Princess, I didn't expect you to be so sporting. I apologized for what I had said just now. Let me toast with you. A bearded officer stood up and toasted. The princess did not speak, but raised a glass with the officer and finished another glass of wine. Princess, I had also offended you earlier. Let me toast with you too. Me too. Me too. These bastards. Were they trying to get her drunk? Yan Qin had clenched his fists so tightly that his fingertips had turned cold. Chapter 2666. Who are you? As Yan Qin continued to observe the princess, Lan Wei who sat obediently by his side. It was indeed a rare sight for her to be so calm and quiet. She had focused her attention on the prince's guardian and watched his every move. Meanwhile, the princess had not refused any of the toasts from the group. She gulped a mouthful of wine every time someone toasted with her, and in the blink of an eye, she had drunk around 5 or 6 glasses. Although her wine glass was of an average size of about 50 milliliters, a dozen glasses were enough to fill her belly. It was almost 700 milliliters of liquor. Even an ordinary man would have been half drunk by now. The princess' cheeks were red as apples, but her lips were pale. The guardian finally grasped her hand that was holding the glass and stopped her from taking another sip. You should stop now. The princess was already drunk by then. She squinted at him and asked, Why should I listen to you? Sir, does it hurt to get embarrassed by a woman? Sir, this beauty is more interesting when she is drunk. Sir, since you care about her so much, why don't you just marry her? If that were to happen, you would be considered royalty on the Blue Fox planet. Some officers started to tease them. The guardian did not seem too disturbed by what he heard. He calmly raised his eyebrows and smiled at the princess. Princess, are you interested in me? Do you want to marry me? The princess looked at him and was stunned by what he uttered. She responded rather indifferently. She decided to stand up for a moment, but as she was too drunk, she tripped and fell into the arms of the guardian. That guardian managed to support her fall and quickly asked, Are you all right? The princess held his face and tilted her head while she looked at him. You're so handsome. The guardian was somewhat taken aback by her words. Thank you, princess. She continued to look at him confusedly and blinked a couple of times. Oh, for you. The guardian was speechless. Meanwhile, the people around him could not help themselves. They laughed at his misery. Duan Mayan. Donmu. You look very handsome. But why do you have 2 heads? This makes you less attractive. Duan Mayan rendered speechless again. The crowd was thoroughly enjoying themselves. Everyone laughed again, and even Lan Wei who giggled at Duan Mayan's misfortune. She then turned to look at Yan Qin and was stunned. Yan Qin did not find the situation funny. On the contrary, his face was pale, and his eyes were still fixed on the princess. His lips trembled. Little fox. Lan Wei who was rarely drunk, but she did get drunk before on certain occasions. Yan Qin had been married to her for so many years, so he had seen it several times. When she was drunk, she did not recognize people. The most common thing she did when that happened was to lay in his arms and hold his face. She would always ask him, Who are you? When she held his face, her little finger was always curled up. The drunk princess seemed to imitate this action flawlessly. Even the curled little finger and the expression of squinting her eyes were the same. Watching all this unfold made Yan Qin feel as though a bolt of lightning had struck him. He forgot where he was and shouted out loud in the heat of the moment. Unfortunately, he was not using his directed audio device. Although he was relatively far away, his voice was loud enough to alarm the group of people he was observing. Who was that? Who spoke earlier? There was no one else in the restaurant beside them. Naturally, the group paid close attention to the direction of the source of the sound, which was where Yan Qin was located. However, they did not see anything. Chapter 2667. Stealing the target. Duan Mayan also looked over as well. While they were distracted, Yan Qin suddenly rushed forward and grabbed the prince's wrist. In a second, he had pulled her into his arms and out of Duan Mayan's grasps. "Who's there? Gosh, is this place haunted?" Although everyone could not see Yenchen, they were able to see that their princess was pulled away. Duan Mayan could not see Yenchen, but he launched an attack toward her back. Given that Duan Mayan was obviously very skilled, Yenchen's arm was badly hurt and felt as though it was broken. Despite the pain, he was still holding the princess tightly and did not let go. He knew that he could not use his spiritual power. Otherwise, he would be exposed. It would undoubtedly be a suicidal action because the officers had already taken out their guns. With him still invisible, they were afraid of accidentally injuring the princess, so they did not dare to shoot. Thinking on their feet, they decided to take out their infrared devices to try and locate their seemingly invisible target. Without any delay, Yenchen carried the princess and ran away. He had forgotten about the Lan Weihu, who was initially with him. The group watched as their princess was rushed out the door with her feet definitely off the ground. All they could do was to yell while they chased after her. Moments after they emerged from the restaurant, there was a loud sound coming from the direction of the hangar. Huge flames were visible, and smoke could be seen rising into the air. The officers' facial expressions had changed. They knew the building that was on fire was the place where they kept all their warships. What happened? Before they could think of anything, a bright red firework rose from that direction, and a sharp alarm sound could be heard as well. To the people from the Blue Fox planet valued those warships as much as their own lives. The warships were their most advanced weapons. Naturally, they could afford to lose them. Therefore, they did not have time to chase the princess. Instead, they rushed toward the hangar at once. The entire base of the Blue Fox clan was in a state of chaos. All the soldiers were running around the building, trying to fix the situation. Meanwhile, Yenchen was carrying the princess and running wildly. At that moment, his mind went completely blank. There was only one thought in his heart. He needed to rescue the princess and get her out of this place. Fortunately, even though he was clearly out of his mind, his natural instincts were to take cautious steps. Therefore, he naturally chose the route with the fewest people. In fact, he did not encounter any other soldiers on his way to the entrance to the clan. He had reached there very swiftly since there were no obstructions in his path. The base of the Blue Fox clan was difficult to enter but easy to exit. Therefore, it was not a challenging task for him to escape. A quarter of an hour later, he had already brought the princess into a vast jungle in the mountains. There were very few pedestrians in the area due to the large number of wild beasts that were present. Presently, a large number of wild rabbits were in the vicinity. Instinctively, Yenchen looked for a quiet place where he could rest. Soon, he found himself standing still under a cliff and could only hear the sound of running water as well as the wind blowing through the treetops. Having finally escaped the frantic state that he was in, Yenchen suddenly realized that he did not bring Lan Weihu out with him. He had left her in the base. Ah! The princess in his arms was dizzy due to the bumpy journey that they had. She vomited on him profusely. Yenchen remained silent. He was actually obsessed with cleanliness, so his body was usually dust-free. At this moment, he had vomit all over him. The wine that the princess drank earlier, as well as some undigested food, dripped down his chest. The smell was unpleasant. Chapter 2668. He gave her a fatal blow. If someone else had vomited on him, Yenchen would have thrown that person at least 800 miles away. However, it was her. Strangely, he did not feel uncomfortable at all. In fact, he only felt angry and distressed. Swiftly, he put her on the ground so that the dirt on his body would not get on her too. The princess was so drunk that she could hardly even stand straight. Yenchen had to support her the entire time. He looked around and saw a big boulder next to them, so he helped her to sit on the rock momentarily. As she was not very conscious, he did not dare to let go of her. He could only hold her with one hand while he took off his dirty robe with his other hand. To his surprise, when the princess saw him undress, she was startled and struggled to get free from him. She blurted, "Don't. I'm pregnant. I cannot do." Yenchen's body froze as he looked at her. "What are you talking about?" The princess curled up her body on the ground and looked at him. Her small mouth was slightly ajar. Her pitiful eyes made her look somewhat confused. "Brother Yen-Chen, can we not?" It was such a familiar rejection for the man. Yen-Chen's heart pounded in his chest. His fingers trembled as he quickly reached out to touch her face. Her skin was warm and delicate, but her cheekbones were a bit hard compared to before. This woman had clearly slimmed down a fair bit. The sense of familiarity made Yen-Chen feel as though he was being stabbed in the chest. His voice was hoarse as he replied, "All right, little fox. We are not going to do anything. Little fox, you know I will never force you." The princess seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. She pouted her small mouth and exhaled. Then she closed her eyes and raised her eyebrows at him. "I am not feeling well." This was another familiar statement to Yen-Chen. Although she did look slightly different, her actions in her semi-conscious state were generally the same as Lan Weihu that he knew and loved. Yen-Chen threw away his dirty robe and patted her shoulder to signal her to lean on him. "Little fox, don't be afraid." Ugh, she vomited on him once more. Yen-Chen was stunned. This time, he did not rush to change his clothes but bent over and grabbed her. One of his hands was pressing on her acupuncture point while the other was patting her back to help her to throw up. This method of inducing vomiting proved to be highly effective. She vomited several times in a row until she could not even straighten her waist. Unfortunately, most of her vomit was on Yen-Chen's body. Finally, she stopped vomiting. Yen-Chen took a blanket from his storage space and laid it on the big boulder next to them. He laid her on it and covered her up to keep her warm. He wiped her mouth and cleaned her up slightly before changing his clothes again. He was filthy all the way from innerwear to his skin. This required him to use the cleaning spell in order to feel comfortable again. Soon, his attention returned to the princess again. She was already fast asleep, however, she appeared to have a frown on her face. Yen-Chen sat next to her and took one of her hands. He murmured, "Little fox." Before he continued, he could already see that her wrists were thin like bones. The sight pained him to his core. Ash was now quite confident that this was the real little fox, his wife that he had loved for more than 200 years. She had come to him, but he gave her a fatal blow. Yen-Chen felt very guilty for doing so. He reached out his hand and wanted to tidy up her messy hair, but her little face suddenly squirmed. The princess quickly turned over and vomited again. However, this time, it was not liquor but blood. Chapter 2669. The arrival of celestial masters with a bloody red liquid felt like needles piercing his eyes. Little fox. His heart ached and his face turned pale. It felt and looked as if he was the one who had vomited blood. He held her fingertips gently and trembled as he asked, "Are you okay? How could she vomit blood? Was it from the injury that he had inflicted on her?" He quickly checked her pulse to assess her condition. After a while, his fingers clenched tightly, and he had the urge to stab himself with a knife. Unfortunately for Yen-Chen, he was sure that her condition was of his own doing. It seemed that his palm had almost cut off the vein that brought blood to her heart. There was even a possibility that it had been cut off, but perhaps it was pieced together by someone. Naturally, it was expected that her heart would feel rather weak, fragile. There was also a risk that her recovery might be stunted if she did not look after the wound. She needed to rest for at least half a year after suffering from such an injury. Yet, she was already up and about and even drank such a large amount of liquor. Her actions were pretty much a way for her to commit suicide. Everything felt strange to Yen-Chen. He vividly recalled the day that he had launched his attack toward Lan Weihu. Due to his overprotectiveness of Lan Weihu, he was angry that the enemy had used a clone of her against him. Nonetheless, even though he handed a powerful attack on her, subconsciously he did not really want to take her life. He clearly remembered that he controlled the power of his attack, which was why he was rather confused at how fatal it appeared to be at the moment. Suddenly, Yen-Chen recalled the conversation that he had with Lan Weihu when they had bumped into each other. She had told him that she had been tortured for nearly a month before she escaped. Perhaps she was already weak at the time, which was why she was hurt so badly by him. Yen-Chen felt a sense of remorse for his action. He could not help but raise his hand to hold her in his arms. He held her tightly and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Little fox, I am sorry." Lan Wei's face was ashen. Nonetheless, after she vomited some blood, she opened her eyes slightly. She wheezed for a moment before she turned her attention to Chen and asked him, "Who are you?" Chen was speechless. He took a light breath before he introduced himself, helplessly, "I am Chen." "Chen?" Lan Wei whispered in a flat tone. It seemed to be emotionless. "Which Chen?" Chen remained silent for a moment. He looked at her crystal-clear eyes and continued, "Your husband, Chen?" Lan Wei tilted her head and slightly and pouted. She seemed very confused. "My husband? He does not want me anymore." Chen was stunned by her reply. He held her hand again and continued, "Little fox, I have never not wanted you. I just mistook you for the wrong person. I will always want you." "You mistook me for the wrong person?" Lan Wei still murmured and somehow still looked confused. "How can he not recognize me? He is my husband, who has been with me for more than 200 years. He often said that even if I peeled my skin off, he would recognize my bones. I obviously have not changed. Furthermore, not only did he recognize me, he even attacked me. He does not want me anymore." She seemed to fall into a nightmare midway through the conversation and continued mumbling. All her words were like knives stabbing through his heart. The pain from each sentence felt worse than the last. "He is a bastard. Little fox, I am sorry. I didn't like to do that kind of thing, but he likes to do it. I know that he was unhappy because I did not enjoy being intimate. I am also trying to overcome this psychological obstacle. I almost succeeded. But I have a baby. I cannot do it when I am pregnant. It is not my intention to push him away, but somehow he left me. He did not even sleep in the same room as me. He was cold to me and didn't care about me. I am very sad." Chen closed his eyes and whispered, "Little fox, I was not angry at you. I was not being cold to you. I was just afraid that I could not control myself. I did not want you to hate me, so I tried to stay away from you to free myself of any urges. I didn't expect you to misunderstand." Lan Wei still had her eyes closed. It really looked as though she was having a nightmare. Chapter 2670, The Arrival of Celestial Masters 2. With her eyes closed, Lan Wei continued. "He went out with his men in search of food. I was worried about him, so I tailed them. I wanted to help but ended up being captured. They took me into a ship and tied to a pillar. They made fun of me and even insulted me. Then I saw him by the window. He passed by the ship, so I quickly cried out loudly, hoping that he would hear me. I wanted to get his attention, but he never looked my way." Chen listened quietly, but his heart ached with her every word. He knew that she was recalling the incident of the day she was taken away. He had heard her calling out to him, and he went looking for her, which led him all the way to the fake Lan Wei who he had brought back instead. "They almost raped me that day. I just wanted to die. But suddenly, they stopped harassing me and took me to the base of the Blue Fox family. They told me that we used to be people of the same race, about 10,000 years ago. They told me to help my own kind by spilling the secrets to opening Tianju Hall's wizardry barrier. I refused, so they sent me into a pitch-black ice cellar." Chen felt terrible. He knew how much she was scared of the cold and the dark. Those bastards seemed to have noticed her weaknesses. She must have been so scared while being held captive, all alone in the dark. The ice cellar was so dark and so cold. I tried to meditate to keep the cold away, but my thin clothes were not very helpful. I was frozen in fear, but I could not cry, for all my tears would become icicles and hurt my eyes even more. In the ice cellar, there were also needles that they would use to poke at me every few hours. Lan Wei subconsciously curled her body into a ball. She was once again trapped in her darkest and coldest days. Those bastards! Tears were rolling in Chen's eyes. They would send someone into my cell every day to ask if I was ready to surrender. I refused to become one of them. I am a disciple of Tianju Hall. I shall never surrender. I shall never betray my friends. I endured the pain, hoping that one day Chen would come and save me. I thought that he would not give up on me. I was sure that he would come. I am sorry. For the entire time that Lan Weihu was held captive, he was out spending time with the fake Lan Weihu. He treated her with care and gentleness. Never had he thought that the woman that he truly loved was actually trapped, waiting for him to save her from a living hell. They kept persuading me. They said if Chen knew that I was the same as them, he would no longer look at me the same way. The people of Tianju Hall would no longer accept me. Yet, they were the only ones who could ensure my survival. I wanted to go back because I knew Chen would never abandon me. He would not abandon me because of something I did not do. But he never showed up, so I thought that something must have held him back, or that he was injured. After a month of excruciating pain, they finally got bored of me. They let their guards down, so I took the chance and escaped. I ran away from the base of the Blue Fox family towards Tianju Hall. I kept running and running. I had not eaten anything for days and got very hungry. At some point, I even doubted if I was ever going to make it back to Tianju Hall. Then I found a rabbit. I was so hungry that I wanted just to drink its blood. Initially, I wanted to grill its meat, but I could not wait any longer. That was when Chen showed up. I was so happy to see him. I could not wait to tell him how badly I had been treated, but he pushed me away. He looked at me like I was trash. Chen closed his eyes in agony. He was trash. He could not even recognize his own wife. Lan Weihu continued. He said that I was an imposter and told me that his wife had never left his side. He said he loved her, which left me so frustrated. Chapter 2671. The Arrival of Celestial Master Swa 3. I am his wife. That woman must die. I told him I was going to kill her, and he returned my fury with a fatal blow. I was dying on the ground, but he did not care. He turned away from me and swiftly left. He did not want me anymore, really. He did not intend to save me. I had just escaped from a living hell, yet he chose to attack me and send me back there. Feeling guilty, Chen hugged her tightly, with tears dripping on her forehead. I am sorry. He is a bastard. He is a useless piece of junk. He found another woman and no longer wanted me around, Lan Weihu murmured. No, it has always been you. There is no one else. It is all my fault. Chen took a look at her flat tummy but dared not ask anything about their child. After going through what she had been through, there was no way the baby would survive. It was no wonder that she was left thin and pale after such torment. Chen felt the urgent need to nurse her back to health, so he carried her in his arms. Little fox, please forgive me. Give me a chance to make it up to you. Come with me. Make it up to me? Lan Weihu seemed a little lost. She was seemingly still trapped in her nightmare. How do you plan to do that? I will do anything you want, little fox, even if you want me to take my own life. Chen suddenly stopped talking as the color faded from his face. A knife was already puncturing his chest towards the core of his body. Lan Weihu casually added, I don't only want your life. I want your heart as well. Chen was dumbstruck. He could feel the knife being twisted in his chest. Blood flowed out of his wound like a stream, which completely moistened her tiny hand in red. Her hand was still holding the handle of the knife, though it was slightly trembling. Nonetheless, her grip was firm. Even under those circumstances, Chen could easily push her away. However, she was the woman he loved. Hence, he did not do such a thing. Instead, he grasped her by the wrist and asked, Little fox, do you really hate me this much? Lan Weihu's eyes showed that she had no intention of backing down. I hate you so very much. Her tone was unrelenting. He slowly let go of her hand and continued, Little fox, I owe you this much. I will never regret dying in your hands. Lan Weihu started trembling even more. She looked at him, intently with a firm intention to kill. Great. Now die. She wanted to twist the knife around and push it even deeper into his heart. She wanted him dead, but the plan did not go well. A flash of 7-colored rays suddenly shone down from above, encapsulating Chen in a flash of blinding light. He was being pulled away from her. Chen could no longer stand on his feet. As soon as he was taken away, the knife slipped out of his wound as well. There was blood everywhere, but amidst the light he could feel a hand on his chest, trying to apply pressure and stop his wound from bleeding. Yen Chen staggered and swayed a little in dizziness. He could somehow see someone in the light. "Shijio, I suffered this with on my own will." He still managed to say some words. Only Gu Shijio could launch flashes of 7-colored rays. Hence, he immediately assumed it was her. What an idiot! An enchanting voice could be heard, berating him for his blind commitment. Shocked, Yen Chen quickly opened his eyes to see who was really the one helping him. But before he could assess the situation, he was sent across the air and landed on top of a rock. Chapter 2672, The Return of Celestial Masters, where it was not entirely comfortable on the rock, and his wound was not any better either. However, Yen Chen could not care less about the physical discomfort he was experiencing. All he wanted to do was to see who was really there in front of him earlier. More accurately speaking, there were two people. There was a man, along with a child. The man was covered in purple elegance, complemented by a loosely tied, straight hairdo that was secured by a hairband. The embellishment of a fox-eye stone on the hairband completely resonated with his gracefulness. Yen Chen did not want to look at the man anymore, for he was already thrown into comparative obscurity by the man's ethereal qualities. The man was looking at him nonchalantly as if judging his lack of good sense. There was also a boy in the man's arms, perhaps of almost 2 years of age. His bright, watery eyes and little red lips were adorable. The boy was covered in a snowy white robe, looking as exquisite as ever. The boy was also looking at Yen Chen, the same way as the man, both judging him for what he had done. However, the boy seemed relieved upon seeing that Yen Chen was still alive. He patted his own chest as a sign of relief and said, "Luckily we made it. Father, save him. Don't let him die." Yen Chen still could not quite get a grasp of what was happening. Dumbstruck, he said in an almost inaudible utterance, Celestial Masterswa?" The man was Fuyi. The man, who was known to be long gone and immortalized, was looking alive and well in front of him. Yen Chen thought that he must be dead. Perhaps that would make more sense. What surprised him even more was the fact that the once arrogant Celestial Masterswa was now holding a boy in his arms, so closely and securely. The man never let anyone get too close to him, nor would he allow anyone to touch him. "It is me. If you can still recognize me, I will assume that you are not entirely stupid," Fuyi said mockingly. Nonetheless, there was no time for nonsense. Yen Chen's clothes were ripped away by a sudden, unseen force, thus revealing the bloody wound underneath it. Fuyi flipped a white, jade bottle open and held it in the air. The bottle then slanted a little to pour some liquid right on the wound. Yen Chen quivered for a moment as it was too painful for him to handle. The liquid medicine burned and tingled his open wound as if it were the strongest kind of alcohol. His complexion went wrinkly and pallid abruptly. Sweat broke out on his forehead, clearly showing that he was miserable. "Is it painful?" Fuyi casually asked. Yen Chen wanted him to try the same sensation, so he knew how dumb the question was. Many complaints arose in his head, but he dared not say a word. Celestial Masterswa was known to be a fussy man, and Yen Chen was not ready to pay the price for what he had to say. He answered him honestly, "Yes, it is painful." "This is the price of your stupidity," Fuyi commented. Yen Chen decided not to say anything more. Hao saw Yen Chen's pale complexion and could not help but sympathize with him. "Your wife is obviously under the influence of someone else's control. How could you stay so still and let her stab you like that? That was absolutely unwise." Hao still spoke with the voice of a child, making him even more adorable to the public. Yen Chen looked at him admirably. The boy even talked with the same condescending tone as his father. He could not help but wonder if Gu Shijio knew about the boy. Many questions were beginning to dawn on him. However, he quickly turned his attention back to Lan Weihu, who was now struggling to sit up. She was still the one he cared about the most. Chapter 2673, The Return of Celestial Master Zhuo 2. After a moment, Lan Weihu decided to sit still and did not move an inch. It looked like her bodily movements had been restricted by a locking spell. Luckily, she seemed unharmed. In that brief moment, Yan Chen finally had the time to realize the severity of his wound. Lan Weihu's knife had almost cut his heart open. Any ordinary mortal would have already been long gone by now. Fortunately, his level 10 spiritual power was the life support that he needed. If Lan Weihu had driven the knife any deeper, nothing would be able to save his life. His wound needed immediate medical attention. There was no time to lose. Fuyi had to leave Lan Weihu aside and assist Yan Chen with his injuries first. Hao already told him that Yan Chen must be kept alive, otherwise, bad things were going to happen. Hao watched as his father worked on the wound and was perplexed. "Father, his heart is cut. You may need to stitch it up with your spiritual power. Why don't you do it right away?" Fuyi was performing the surgery from a distance. He did not even touch Yan Chen. Hence, the operation looked like a show to Hao. Fuyi continued to perform the surgery with quick movements on his fingers, sending streaks of spiritual power on the surrounding of the wound. "Your mother gets jealous easily. She will probably feel bad if I touch another person," Fuyi finally explained. Hao was speechless. He could not quite understand Celestial Master's reasoning. Medical surgeries often required certain levels of physical contact, which was completely understandable. Moreover, Yan Chen was a man. Why would Shijio get jealous of him, anyway? Yan Chen was bewildered when Fuyi brought up his mother. Could the boy be Zijia's child? He had never heard about any of it from her. She had never even mentioned the resurrection of Celestial Master Zhuo. "Focus," Fuyi urged. "Use the Adumbra mantra to channel the spiritual power in your body to the wound. Keep your mind still and at ease, unless you want to become handicapped." Yan Chen kept silent and did as told. Celestial Master Zhuo was still the same, unforgiving with his straightforwardness, but what terrified Yan Chen the most was that his breathing had slowly become more and more difficult. Yan Chen finally realized that he should not let his mind wander anymore. He needed to focus and regulate his vitals like what Fuyi had told him. With his eyes closed, Yan Chen could not see what happened next. However, as soon as Yan Chen started meditating, Hao clearly saw that there was a red bug crawling out of the wound. The bug was only the size of a mosquito, but he managed to catch a glimpse of its pointy mouth that was still glistening like a metal blade. As soon as the bug emerged, it was ready to extend its wings and leaped into the air. However, Fuyi sent a streak of 7-colored ray and wrapped the bug in a bubble of light. Surprisingly, the tiny bug was still floundering about in the grasp of the light. It was powerful enough to shake the bubble. Baffled, Fuyi had never come across the bug, though he had seen many things before. "The thing looks hideous. Father, kill it with a needle," Hao promptly suggested. Fuyi took a look at Hao. He wanted to burn the thing at first but changed his mind. He took out a needle and pointed it at the hideous bug. The bug tried to avoid it, but could never get any faster than Fuyi's flying needle. Soon, it was punched with a hole in its body and slowly disappeared at the tip of the needle. In the depths of the base of the Blue Fox family, there was a house. Duan Mayan did not join others at the airbase. Instead, he sat in his room on a futon while performing a series of complicated enchantment at his fingertips. A black bowl was placed in front of him. A faint streak of red light steadily encapsulated the black metal bowl. There was a red bug in the bowl that was the size of a tennis ball. Chapter 2674, The Return of Celestial Master Zhuo 3. There were many pairs of wings on its body, all flapping simultaneously. Wisps of purple smoke surrounded the bug as its wings flapped on. The smoke then rose into the air as the thin length of threads and disappeared in the dark. The whole scenario was as wicked as it could possibly get. The bug was originally rather still in the bowl, only its wings flapped. Hence, its sudden shivering suggested that some external factor must have triggered it. Duan Mayan was troubled, but it was too late for him to do anything. Pricked by a needle, the bug then lay flat in the bowl and started shrieking in pain. Duan Mayan tried to perform some spells in an attempt to cut off the thin threads, but the bug soon died away in a pool of blood, leaving only a small piece of skin as a sign of its existence. Affected, Duan Mayan's body trembled a little before he spat out a mouthful of blood. His complexion turned pale, almost instantaneously. All that had happened surprised him. He looked at the bug, which was now only a layer of skin, and clenched his fists in indignation. He closed his eyes in contemplation and started wondering if the man was already here. His arrival was quicker than he had expected. The venomous soul-supporting grudge spell had just been cast not long ago. It was also the first time that he was using it as his secret weapon. He could not understand how the spell was broken in such a short time. The creature was not afraid of fire or any form of physical attack. The only way to kill it was to use a thin needle, formed by the solidification of one's spiritual power. Duan Mayan thought that he was the only one who knew how to kill the creature. Apparently, he was mistaken. Duan Mayan had spent a great amount of time and effort to cast the spell. Therefore, the death of the creature greatly affected him, too. After a few quick breaths, he looked at his own hands and could not help but sigh. The condition of the body was no longer as good as he expected. He took a look at the remains of the creature and smiled. There was still hope. A drop of blood was formed in the air and sent directly to the body of the creature. Soon, it seemed to come to life again and reformed its body. Yen Qin was fatally injured. Death was inevitable for him if nothing was done. Fortunately, his life was saved by Di Fuyi's timely arrival. Di Fuyi's miraculous procedure had brought Yen Qin back to life. Even the medicine that Di Fuyi used was made from a very rare kind of herb. Yen Qin was very grateful for Celestial Masters' kind help. The amount of treatment that he had received from Celestial Masters was rather generous. Although it was uncomfortable, he had to endure it. It was a sign of recovery. Thank you. He wanted to express his gratitude but was immediately interrupted by Di Fuyi. Cut the nonsense. Focus on your meditation. Yen Qin said nothing more. He closed his eyes and started meditating. Di Fuyi slowly walked towards Lan Weihu. The locking spell still limited the movement of her limbs, so she could only move her eyelids. Tears traced her cheeks uncontrollably, but there was no one to wipe the tears away. Swiftly Di Fuyi set her free from the spell. Lan Weihu swayed a little in an unbalanced manner before jumping off the rock. She then ran unsteadily towards Yen Qin. Only go to him if you want him to die faster, Di Fuyi warned. Lan Weihu stopped moving forward and stared at him blankly. I did not mean to hurt him. Chapter 2675. The Return of Celestial Master Zhuo 4. I understand. So, do you hate him? Di Fuyi looked at her fixedly as he asked. Lan Weihu went pale at the question, unsure of what to say. She closed her eyes and confessed, I am not sure, but I never wanted him to die. She looked at her hand and saw the knife that was stained with his blood. Irritated, she wanted to throw the knife away, but it seemed to be attached to her palm. She tried to fling it away, but the knife still stayed in her hand regardless of her efforts. Instead, the action of trying to get rid of the knife seemed to inflict pain on her palm. Shocked, she tried to fling the knife away again but failed. It felt as if her bones were breaking apart with every move. Lan Weihu looked at Di Fuyi for help. Di Fuyi stared at her intently with reassuring eyes. It was as if he thought of himself as her savior. What is false cannot be true, and what is true cannot be false. Everything is all but an illusion of our minds, he started speaking in a calm voice. Slowly but surely, the hatred that had been controlling Lan Weihu's mind slowly vanished. Clang! The knife slipped out from her hand. Feeling weak, Lan Weihu sat on the ground to catch her breath. Di Fuyi propelled another streak of light to enclose Lan Weihu in a bubble. The temperature suddenly dropped drastically, making her feel as if she had just been placed in a pool of cold water. Shivering, Lan Weihu could not help but look to Di Fuyi for an explanation. However, she realized that he was no longer focused on her condition. Instead, his attention had been diverted to the knife on the ground, which he reached out to with his hand. It had a bronze, golden texture on its blade, engraved with figures that were made from red strands being twisted together, like many tiny bugs crawling together in a mass. The evil feature was extremely unpleasant to look at. Fuyi wanted the knife to be destroyed but changed his mind due to little Hao's request. "Father, I want it." Hao reached out his hand and asked for the knife. "Little one, you are only a child, so you should not be carrying this lethal weapon." A faint voice could be heard nearby. Lan Weihe thought that they were the only two persons present, so she was surprised by the third voice. She turned around and saw two creatures standing by the tree, a mussel of rosy pink shells and a beast with a smooth, shiny coat. Astonished, she could not help but wonder. Were they the mussel and Luwu? Their physical appearance had changed so much. The mussel opened its shells, revealing a handsome young man of 12 to 13 years of age whom she had never met. Concerned, the young man was still watching Hao. He was the one who told Hao not to keep the knife. Hao took a quick glance at him but did not appreciate his advice. "Father, may I have a look at the knife?" he asked Fuyi. Fuyi was quite puzzled. Ever since they parted ways with Gu Shijio in the Shura world, the boy had been so impatient about leaving the place. He kept urging Fuyi but never said why. When they finally found the way to descend to the lower bound, specifically to Starry Crescent Land, the first thing that the boy was concerned about was not his mother. Instead, he insisted that they had to come here first. It turns out that they were here just in time to save Yen Chen's life. Hao never explained it, but Fuyi could somewhat understand that perhaps Yen Chen and Lan Weihe's involvement seemed to play a great role in changing their tragic fate in the end. The boy seemed relieved that they arrived just in time. The rescue seemed like a crucial event along the timeline from which Hao had come from. Also, Fuyi could not resist the pitiful look in his son's eyes, so he passed him the knife. Hao held the knife in his little hand. He placed his finger gently on the sharp edge and traced the patterns of the red strands. After a while, the knife suddenly vibrated and cut his finger. Blood started flowing out from his wound at once. Chapter 2676, The Return of Celestial Master Zhua, 5. "Be careful, little one." The mussel called out anxiously. Hao threw him an icy glance. "Mussel, if you treat me like a baby again, I am going to cut you," he said with a sarcastic smile. The mussel remembered something and decided to keep quiet. Meanwhile, Luwu stretched out its paw and gave the mussel a few pats on its shell. Hao dripped his blood on the red strands, thus initiating a series of twists and turns on the surface of the blade. The entire knife was shaking as a result of the agitation. Soon, the red strands turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared into thin air. The patterns on the knife no longer existed. Hao protested, "What a lousy knife! Father, please destroy it." He then passed the knife to Fuyi, but Fuyi was reluctant to touch it. He used his power to levitate the knife in the air and shattered it with a streak of 7-colored ray. The knife was now a pile of ash that was blown away by the wind. While the two males were busy with the knife, Lan Weihe could feel a sudden change in her bodily condition. A red light could be seen exiting her body. Later, the dark purple tone in her eyes slowly returned to her normal shade of black. She looked at Yen Chen again, who was still pale and weak, and then took another look at her own hands that were covered in blood. Her body started trembling in fear. She had almost killed the only man that she had ever loved. In the base of the Blue Fox clan, Duan Mayan was still performing dark magic all alone. He could feel a sudden tingle on his fingertip, which was a sign that something might be going wrong. Soon enough, the dark magic that he was manipulating suddenly withered away and disappeared entirely. Duan Mayan was shocked by what he witnessed. Frustrated, he stood and kept the bowl away in his sleeve. Swiftly, he walked out of the room. Although he found it hard to believe, the man was really here, much earlier than he had thought. Apparently, that man had also ruined a very crucial part of his plan. He needed to do something to change it. The hangar in the Blue Fox clan was still in complete chaos. There was a medium-sized battleship flying very close to the ground and shooting out streaks of laser beams almost everywhere. The soldiers of the Blue Fox planet all wanted to destroy the battleship that had gone rogue, so they ran towards other ships, hoping to board them and fight back by all means. However, the battleship never stopped firing at them. Every shot was accurate and aimed to kill. In fact, some shots were able to take the lives of up to 5 soldiers at once due to their close proximity. None of them were able to board a ship in time. Furthermore, the weapons that they had with them could not do any significant damage to the ship. Guan Yening watched helplessly as the death toll of his men continued to rise. Moreover, his battleships were severely damaged by the one that had gone out of control. He suspected that it would take at least 1 to 2 months to get them repaired. Nonetheless, what bothered him the most was the death of his men. The soldiers who stayed behind in the base were some of his best. Now, almost all of them were dead. If they insisted on running towards the existing battleships on the ground, only death awaited them. Guan Yening had to call for their withdrawal, even though he was reluctant to lose his battleships. Swiftly, the men decided to look for cover. However, the battleship was still shooting at the soldiers who were running for their lives in hopes that they could outrun it. In the turmoil and chaos of war, Guan Yening heard a buzzing sound from the other end of the airbase. Baffled, he turned around and saw a gigantic, disc-like structure slowly rising into the air. Guan Yening was surprised. It was the general's battleship. As the highest security guarded it, only the general would be granted entry. Since the ship was already rising into the air, the general must have boarded his battleship and was ready to join the battle. Unsurprisingly, the general's battleship was powerful enough to destroy any other ships that the people from the Blue Fox planet possessed. The people hoped that the general's ship would be able to turn the situation around in their favor. As expected, the ship rose into the air and released a streak of blinding blue light at the battleship in the air. In an instant, the battleship was turned into a giant ball of fire. Chapter 2677, D. Fuyus passed, great. Yes. That was awesome. Many cheered for the perfect comeback. They knew the power of the general's ship. Nothing could stop it. Furthermore, under the extreme heat, they expected that the intruder would be burnt along with the ship. However, Guan Yening was still worried, for he had witnessed Gu Zijia's kung fu before. If she was the one who maneuvered the battleship, he knew that she would survive because of her ability to teleport. Understanding Gu Zijia's abilities and seeing that none of his men was able to approach the battleships alive, he activated a special mechanism that would prevent entry into all the other available ships. In doing so, all the ships would be shut down so no one would be able to fly them or fire their weapons. While the others were watching the burning warplane, Guan Yening surveyed his other ships to check on their status. It seemed that none of them were triggered. This made him suspect that the person operating the battleship could be someone else. It was either that or Gu Shijio had hidden somewhere. Where could she possibly be? The Lord was known to appear and disappear mysteriously. This troubled Guan Yening greatly, as there was no way he could predict her next move. The entire troop only had one enemy, and yet, she was capable of turning the entire group of highly trained soldiers into a mess. As none of the other warplanes were activated, Guan Yening turned to look at the general's battleship once more. It was still in the air, with no sign of landing. The general had been pushing his men to keep their guards up over the past few days due to his misleading information. However, Gu Shijio never showed up. Therefore, most of his men had started to lose their respect for their superior leader. When the general told everyone that the enemy was coming, all of them treated the news with contempt. They did not take it seriously and continued to have a good time. To their utter surprise, the enemy showed up for real this time, and she had taken many lives. Guan Yening thought that the general must be holding the ship in the air because he was worried that the Lord might still be alive. Perhaps he wanted to take her down once and for all. Guan Yening wished to understand the situation, so he pressed a shiny device on his wrist to talk to the general, but the general never picked up his call. What was going on? Everything could happen in an instant during a war, so the general and his military officers should always be connected. The general once told him that they should always keep open communication unless they were busy commanding for their ship's attack. Since the general's battleship was stationary in the air, There was no reason why he would not pick up the call. Therefore, Guan Yening began to panic and focused his attention on the battleship. A sudden realization struck him. Could the battleship have fallen into the control of the beautiful lord? Gu Shijiao had indeed left the battleship right before it was blown into bits. She witnessed the strength of the main battleship, so the thought of seizing control of the ship struck her interest. She wanted to blow up the entire base. Therefore, she went into the battleship right using her teleportation ability. If that was the biggest and strongest battleship that the invaders had, so the facilities in the ship must be the best. That also meant that it would be equipped with the safest security measures. The last ship that Guan Yening commanded was equipped with the ability to uncover her invisibility spell. There was also a barrier that could shield them from her attacks. She believed that the same facilities available on the general's ship, access that it would be multiple times stronger. Gu Shijiao was also prepared for the possibility that she might not be able to enter the ship due to some protective barrier that might be in place. To her surprise, everything went smoothly. In an instant, she was already on board. The floor and walls of the ship were all furnished with silver polishing. There did not seem to be any lights around the place, but the inside of the ship was very well lit. Chapter 2678. D. Fuyus Past 2. Gu Shijiao entered one of the rooms in the battleship. While she expected to see walls encased with advanced technology, the place turned out to look more like a home. There was a table, a chair, and even a bed. Also, a black-inked painting was loosely hung on the wall, illustrating the ethereal beauty of a vast, starlit sky. Gu Shijiao could not fathom the technique that was used to create the illustration. It looked so surreal, like she was staring right into the vastness of the galaxy. Her head spun a little at the sight of the canvas. Although she was a little startled by the interior design of the ship, she quickly made up her mind to explore the place further. In a brief moment, she could tell at once that no one was there. Had she made a mistake while teleporting? She was certainly not in the main control room of the ship. Had she gone into the bedroom instead? While the place looked like a bedroom, oddly enough, there was no door. Gu Shijiao tried to look for an exit, but there was none. Troubled, she decided to use her teleportation ability again. Bang! She did not manage to get out of the room. Instead, she bumped straight into a wall. Fortunately, the wall was not very hard. Furthermore, her protective barrier prevented her from getting injured. She steadied herself but was still baffled by what was stopping her from teleporting. Was it something in the walls? Without wasting any time, she went around the place and tried every single wall in the room, but could not get past any of them. Apparently, the room was able to disable her teleportation skills. She was indeed trapped. Everything seemed odd. It was easy for her to enter the room just now, but somehow there was no way out. Was it possible that the room was able to permit her entry and yet prevent her from exiting? So far, the best technology that Gu Shijiao had encountered as the one which could expose her invisibility spell. Why would her teleportation skill fail, too? Confused, Gu Shijiao decided to explore the room further and sniffed around the room to pick up any clues. The smell felt very familiar to her, like she had smelled something similar before. Nonetheless, she refused to believe that the small room was able to stop her from leaving the place. If there was a way to get in, there must also be a way out, which must be hidden somewhere in the room. She just probably had to find out the mechanism of the place. She wanted to look around but was distracted by a hissing sound. She turned around and saw a huge screen in place of the canvas that hung on the wall earlier. A video started playing. Gu Shijiao was a little puzzled by the sudden activation of the screen. She heaved a sigh. Had she pressed on some kind of remote control? She observed her surroundings and noticed that her hand was pressing down on the surface of a jade table. There was no button or whatsoever on top of it. Troubled, she decided to give the video a look and was shocked by what she saw. The video was not playing a documentary about the technological advancements achieved by the people of the Blue Fox planet. It also was not something men would watch to kill time. It was about a mythology from a long, long time ago. The first image that popped out was the vastness of the galaxy in the background, with many lines that crisscrossed and many dots that connected to one another. Everything seemed connected to one another and slowly revealed a man. Like a newborn, the man was without any clothes to cover his naked body. He simply lay quietly in the darkness. The man seemed to be in the process of being formed from the darkness, with every line of his muscular body being meticulously created. Gu Shijio cursed and turned her eyes away from the screen. She could not look at any other naked man other than Fuyi, despite being quite impressed by the man's perfect body, which was so vividly crafted like the statue of Michelangelo's David. When she looked at the screen again, the man was already well dressed. Gu Shijio could not help but stare at his robes fixedly. She could not figure out what the robes were made of. It seemed to have been made by something as light as a cloud, added with a little blue touch from the sky. The silhouette looked rather simple and loose on his body. As he stood in the wind, the robes danced around majestically. She was impressed by the man's gracefulness. Chapter 2679, Fuyu's Past, 3. The strangest thing about the video was that every detail of the man, including his robes, was clearly displayed on the screen, apart from his face. There were no facial features on his face, which made it look like a blank canvas. It was a peculiar sight for anyone. Gu Shijio wondered what kind of species this faceless man could be. The things that she witnessed next were a series of events that strongly reminded her of the great myth of when Pan-gu created the world for all of mankind. The man continued to travel without a direction in the great space of millions, or even billions, of stars. Everywhere around him was impressive emptiness. There was nothing else but him. There were no creatures or living beings anywhere to be seen. Apparently, the man in the video was a god. Every gesture of his could easily affect his surroundings. After a short while of wandering around, he decided to sit down somewhere in the galaxy and started waving his hands out of boredom. Clumps of dust seemed to swirl along with his every wave. He played with the cloud of dust for a while before setting it off into the faraway distance to eventually collide with the desolate, uninhabited planets. Dust fogs started swirling around the planets, creating an opaque mass of particles in the air. The man seemed rather fascinated by the result of this action, so he kept creating the same collisions over and over again. Meteorites of different elements were sent to collide with random planets in the area. Gradually, green started to spread across the surface of every planet. Hills and mountains started rising abruptly from the ground, and lakes were formed from the streams within the hills. Animals began to rule the world. Gu Shijio sat and watched attentively as the entire scene unfolded. The whole video felt like an upgraded story of Nuwa and the birth of human beings. However, in this case, the man was both Pan-gu and Nuwa, for he had achieved two different ambitions at once. According to legend, Nuwa created human beings by molding clay into human figurines, which was different from the theory of evolution. First, he bombarded the planets with many meteorites and let life evolve as it was, just like Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. In the video, it seemed that the entire evolution process had been fast-forwarded. It took only a minute to show the beginning of life on Earth up to the point where humans learned to walk on foot. Obviously, humans were not the only advanced species on Earth. There were also half-beast men, birdmen, and even half-insect men. There were many species that she had never even heard of before. Some were even completely beyond her imagination. Even for human beings, they all looked and evolved differently on different planets. Some were as big and muscular as the apes. Some were so tiny that they were only 2 feet tall. There were also people of different external appearances, beautiful ones and hideous ones. Some were born normally with 4 limbs. Others had 7 or 8 limbs. The terrifying sight sent chills down her spine. The creator of the universe would take a tour around each planet once in a while. If he found any species to be unfavorable to his liking, an apocalypse would be dawned on the world to wipe out the entire species so that he could restart with another round of evolution. Gu Shijio continued to stare at the divine force that created the universe and started thinking if this version of the story belonged to the creator of the Blue Fox planet. The contents seemed to suggest that the creator of the universe was savagely violent. Anything that he disliked would be immediately abolished on a catastrophic scale, whether by flooding, fire, or lightning. Lives never mattered to him, as he continued to manipulate the destinies of the living creatures on each planet as he pleased. She stared at the Creator and found him to be a little familiar, but she could recall when and where they met. Soon, the Creator seemed to have become bored with the stupidity of the creatures that he had created, and he seemed to have grown tired of managing the lives on each planet. So, he started performing a spell amid a cloud of stardust. Slowly, a man's figure could be seen forming under his spell. Gu Shijio gasped in astonishment, for she could not believe her eyes. The man was Di Fuyi. But how could it be possible? Why would Di Fuyi be in a documentary from the Blue Fox planet? Chapter 2680, Di Fuyu's Past, 4. Gu Shijio had doubts in her mind about the accuracy of the video from the very beginning. She was actually not too focused on it until Di Fuyi entered the fray. It had only been a month since they parted ways, but it felt like an eternity. She missed him dearly. It was beyond her expectation to see him again so soon, though only on a screen. She never knew that the Creator of the universe also specifically created Di Fuyi. The fact that Di Fuyi was created clearly surprised her. She had always thought that the master of heavenly law was born by nature through a long process of development based on the intrinsic qualities of the universe. Could the contents of the video be true? Or had it been edited with personal biases? Who was the one who made the video? Many questions started to haunt Gu Shijio, but she decided to keep on watching. Di Fuyi, who was now in his usual purple robes, approached the Creator of the universe and cordially bowed before him. The Creator of the universe carefully observed the man and was impressed by what he had created. He then gifted Di Fuyi with a headband, embellished with a red gem that was crafted in the shape of a fox's eye. As soon as Di Fuyi put on the headband, his entire aura changed. It seemed to have emulated the aura of his Creator. The Creator of the universe gave him some orders before going into a long, deep sleep in one of the hidden corners of the universe. Di Fuyi assumed his role and started touring the universe. Di Fuyi was portrayed as an intelligent man who got connected with people from different planets. They viewed him with the utmost respect and admiration. He was a god to these people. As time went by, his power slowly developed and became just as powerful as his Creator. After 10,000 years of sleep, the Creator of the universe woke up to a world that he did not recognize. A set of rules governed every world, and every star moved in harmony and concord. Also, the man that he created had become the master of heavenly law in his absence. In a unique spacetime, he managed to control all the orbiting planets by using a star chart. Every being must act according to the heavenly law that he had made. Those who violated the rules were punished. The Creator of the universe was delighted to see a flourishing and prosperous panoramic sight spreading out before his eyes. He met up with Di Fuyi and wanted to compliment him for the wealth that he had brought upon the universe, but Di Fuyi had lost all sense of respect for his Creator. Instead, he acted with hostility and violence. They would play chess as friends, but little did he know that Di Fuyi was always trying to stab him in the back. The Creator of the universe did not like that Di Fuyi was always making arbitrary decisions and peremptory actions, so he wanted to take back control of the universe. However, he could not risk disrupting the perfect harmony that had been governing the balance between each planet for so long. The Creator of the universe was not pleased by his loss of power. One day, he was inspired to create a beautiful woman by forging the essence of heaven and earth. When the display slowly zoomed into the appearance of the woman, Gu Shijio was so shocked that she broke a corner of the table. The woman looked exactly like her. The woman was Gu Shijio. She never knew that the Creator of the universe also created her. Gu Shijio rubbed her nose in bewilderment. Should she be proud of her heritage? She never knew that she shared the same past as Di Fuyi. The woman appeared to treat her Creator with great respect by acknowledging him as her godfather. In return, the Creator of the universe treated her with great care and kindness. He would always explore the galaxies with her and study the culture of the different worlds. Perhaps, because they had been together for a long time, they came to have developed feelings for each other. The female character seemed to have developed a greater sense of admiration for her creator each passing day. She did not hide the thrill of infatuation in her eyes every time she looked at him. Very often, she would hug his arm as they laughed cheerfully together. In return, the creator of the universe thought of her as his source of happiness. The way he looked at her slowly changed as well. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.